Hi guys. So here we are in Org Psych, and I want to talk to you about W. Edward Deming. And you guys probably get sick by the end of the class of me talking about Deming and literally essentially worshiping Deming. When we were, committing to our total quality transformation at the mill, maybe some of us are best described as Deming disciples, right? And so let's begin with the system of profound knowledge, and then we'll move on after that in a separate lecturette to the 14 points and the 7 deadly sins as described by Deming. Also, you can look, I'm going to put some links to some Deming videos that are on YouTube, or we can see Deming speak for himself. But let's begin with the system of profound knowledge, and that is a pretty big statement, right? And you can capture this. This is coming to you out of your Mary Walton, the Deming Management Method book, so you can orient yourself with that and take even a bigger picture of it. And when the book talks about Deming's history, I think it's a good read. It's a nice biographical read, not necessary to the course, but fascinating nonetheless, right? And how an academic comes to the path that he eventually went down. So there's an integrated framework for transformation, and that's what Deming's talking about ultimately, is the transformation of organizations from the old way to the new way, so to speak. This integrated format of thought and action enables the transformation. It's outlined in Deming's The New Economics, and he's got several books. I prefer Out of the Crisis, but The New Economics is awesome as well. And I'm going to quote Deming here. The first step is transformation of the individual. And if you don't believe Deming is a psychologist, I'm going to try and make that case. He was never trained as a psychologist. He's actually one of the best native-born psychologists ever. This transformation is discontinuous. It comes from an understanding of the system of profound knowledge. The individual transformed will perceive new meaning to his life, to events, to numbers, to interactions between people. Man, that frickin' sounds like a psychologist. And you're saying, well, this dude, he was trained as a statistician. What the hell is he talking about here? It's more than that. And that's why I think these principles are so profound and so important. Because we can make a difference in each other's lives. We can make a difference in our community. But the system of profound knowledge is at the core of our ability to do that. So once the individual understands the system of profound knowledge, right, he will apply its principles to every kind of relationship with other people. So that's within family, that's within the workplace, that's within the community, right? He will have the basis for judgment of those own decisions and for transformations of organizations that he belongs to. The individual, once transformed, will then have an appreciation for systems, and that's systems thinking. And when I was at the paper mill, one of the best compliments that someone could get was, and you'd refer to a person, he's a process guy. And what that meant is he understood processes. He looked at the world in terms of processes and systems, right? And that's where the true value and the true understanding of how we operate. To understand how you operate within an academic institution is you're embedded in a system, and it shapes your behavior. Sounds kind of like social psychology, doesn't it? Yeah. And organizational psychology, I hate to say it, but a lot of social psychologists are greedy sons of bitches. And they say, well, actually, organizational psychology is just a subfield of social psychology. Now, we could argue about that, all night long, but there are many social psychologists that feel that way, all right? So what else do we acquire from work? Well, a knowledge of variation. How does variation occur? What is variation? And I'm going to post a link to the red bead experiment, the red bead game that Deming conducted, and you can watch that. I'm sorry, guys, that we're in a virtual environment, because I've made the red bead apparatus, and we do it in class. And I think it's a hella good time, and I did it in all the mills that I did the training in. It's just a wonderful exercise, and it makes clear what variation is. The theory of knowledge, right? And what is knowledge? And then psychology. And look at, he's got that right there. Is an understanding of psychology. So the transformation includes then providing a new outside view. There's more than one way to look at the world, right? We transform managers to leaders, and we have a module on leadership, and we're going to talk about the difference between a manager and a leader. Now, we talked about theory X versus theory Y, and theory X then tended to be old school managers, where theory Y tended to indicate more of a modern leader. But there's more differentiation to be done than just the simple theory X or Y. Stay tuned, it's coming. We can talk about increasing quality, customer loyalty, worker satisfaction, and ultimately profitability. And those are not trade-offs. Those go together. So, as quality goes up, costs go down. And that's something that needs to be understood within the context of the system of profound knowledge, right? Reducing costs, reduce waste, rework, and staff attrition, and litigation. And to that extent, then, we can see that costs actually go down as quality goes up. We remove fear and competition from the workplace and or the classroom. So, fear interferes with people attempting to be creative. Fear also interferes with learning. There's nothing more frustrating for a lot of teachers than when a student comes to us and merely says, you know, what do I need to get an A on this assignment? And it's like, I understand that question, and I'm not putting down anyone for asking that question, because that question is a product of the system, not a product of the individual. That we've held up grades is all meaningful. We inspire competition in students to get better grades, especially classes with curves, right, are just so amazingly detrimental. What I'm about is the ideas and about the learning and how we can reshape society. Not whether I get out of school with a 3.9 or a 3.6 or because that enhances my chances to get into a better school or some such, right? That we start moving away from that idea. And notice, you're going to notice a lot of instructors in psychology are starting to look at assignments like, did you complete the assignment? Here's the 5 points, right? That we're going to start talking in terms of learning outcomes and completion versus non-completion, rather than this rank ordering at this infinitesimal level of 18 on a midterm versus 20 on a midterm. It's going to be a slow transition, and it's going to occur incrementally, right? So we remove fear and competition from the workplace and the classroom. We realizing the power and pleasure derived from intrinsic motivation, and how intrinsic motivation occurs, but how it's inhibited and how it's interfered with. And if you want to really explore that concept, believe me, we explore extreme depth in psychology of motivation, right? And in a very practical way, I hope. And of course, this is an unsolicited commercial, if you will, because I teach that course every spring, Psychology of Motivation, right? Cultivating the value and results of cooperation and collaboration. And I got a book in me, I got a couple books in me, so when I retire I'm going to start getting serious and writing books. And one of those books is entitled The Competition Myth. And I'm going to say right now that just show me a study that pits cooperation versus competition, and where competition produced the superior result to cooperation. And I've yet to find a study that says that. And if you can find one, push it towards me, because I'm going to have to do all the background research for my book. So I'm a firm believer in cooperation, all else being equal, being superior to competition. And you may differ with me, and that's okay, right? Because we've all been raised on a steady diet of the benefits of competition. And that's why the book would be titled The Competition Myth, right? So, thinking in new ways and taking action based on confirmed knowledge. So that is, we empirically support our knowledge, and that's fascinating. What else does a transformation include? Understanding the importance of better system for achieving better outcomes. So we begin to stop focusing on the individual and say, oh man, this guy screwed it up, and we look at what in the system allowed that screw up to occur in the first place. So we shift the investigation away from individuals to systems, and that's core to systems thinking. Working towards continual improvement individually and collectively. So what can we do on a day-to-day basis to always improve? And when you think about the Pat Kerrigan video and what occurred at Bay City, Michigan at the General Motors parts plants, note, it was continuous improvement, the small things on a day-to-day basis. Workers over time reduced their reject rate by 40%. And note also that budget achievement went up at the same time. Create opportunities. Oh, I'm sorry. I got off kilter here. Supporting individuals and organizations through the first disruptive steps of the transformation. And it's hella disruptive. And everything goes wacky. Everything turns upside down. A lot of people become amazingly insecure, especially people in positions of power, because they feel they're losing their power. And it's no, you're not losing your power, but you're going to demonstrate your power differently as we move through this transition. You're not going to be sitting there lording it over people, telling them what to do. You're going to be asking people, what can I provide for you so that you can do your job better? Notice, you're still demonstrating power, but it's in a very different way. Right? We create opportunities for continued lifelong learning to bring long-term meaning and satisfaction and joy. So we bring meaning to what a person does at work. We give them the opportunity to continually improve and learn. Lifelong learning. One of the things I love about being embedded in academia, and maybe one of the reasons I never left Ohio State. You'd think after 12 years of college I would have had enough and maybe gotten the hell out of Dodge. No, I stay. I love to learn, and I recognize that learning has value. It does in this context, but imagine you're in a context where learning is meaningless. We lose our desire to learn, right? And then it makes continuous improvement more difficult. We address different learning styles, generational, perhaps, but also individual within generation, and cultivate the next generation of leaders. And to me, that's one of the ultimate responsibilities I feel we have at Ohio State, is to cultivate you guys to be the next generation of leaders. It's like we're handing the world over to you, and we want you to be as well prepared as it's possible for you to take that world and make it something better than it is now. Nothing would delight most of us in this department more than you doing that. So, our psychologists key to the transformation? I can ask, what do you think about that? Can we disseminate enough knowledge of psychology in a class or two to accomplish the level of understanding necessary? And I fear not, and that's why I want so much for you guys to grasp these principles, embrace these principles, and take them to your workplaces, take them to your families, take them to your communities. Because it's not just going to happen in school, it has to happen within all the contexts in which we operate, right? Could it be accomplished with a different type approach to psychological understanding? Perhaps. And that's something for you to work on, right? So everything is a system. Everything is a process. Once the individual understands the system of profound knowledge, he'll apply its principles to every kind of relationship with other people, right? He's got a basis of judgment for his own decisions. And I know I'm repeating this, right? But that's how important it is, right? The individual, once transformed then, will do what? They will set an example. You will set an example through your behavior. Not just your words, but through your behavior. And you'll set that example to your children, your partner. You'll set that example to the people around you. You'll set that example to the people you lead. There's nothing more powerful than example, right? Be a good listener is absolutely critical, right? Tom Peters, #1 statement for a leader. Came out of that leadership video. A different leadership video than the one we watched. But Tom Peters, leadership guru. The 4 most important words you can ask, according to Tom Peters. What do you think? Let's repeat it. What do you think? You want to be a good leader? The first thing you do is you ask your people, well, what do you think? What did Pat Kerrigan do? She went around the plant and said, what do you guys think? You willing to give it a go? So Tom Peters, what do you think? Now, I'll give you 4 more words, my magic words. Tom Peters is going to ask you, what do you think? And then I'm going to come around a couple minutes later and said, how do you know? Tom Peters got his 4 words, I got my 4 words. But what do you think, right? Be a good listener. That doesn't mean you have to do what people say. It just means you have to listen to them carefully, right? Continually teach other people. Always be teaching, right? Either directly or indirectly. Help people to pull away from their current practice and beliefs and move to the new philosophy without feeling guilt about the past. There's nothing wrong with us for thinking one way in the past. What's wrong is we remain locked in that system of thought that prevents continuous improvement to ourselves, to our families, to our communities. Right? So, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you hard-nosed. I'm going to be a little in your face about this. Are you prepared to lead and or participate in transforming organizations? Are you prepared to do that? Does that sound like something you want to do? Do you want to develop your leadership potential? And do you want to develop it for the purposes of good for the community and our world? Huh? Are you willing to do that? Do you want to do that? And hopefully this course gives you a set of practical tools to get that done. Okay? And I can't tell you how pleased over the years I have been to have this opportunity to share these ideas with my fellow Buckeyes. See? I'm serious about this. So I want you guys to have a good day. And we're going to, in the next lecture, we're going to talk about Deming's 14 points and the deadly sins. So we're going to continue to make it real. Later, guys.